Good evening, everybody, and welcome to B-Roll, the podcast where I talk all about films. If you don't know me, I'm Nat G Simpson, and I'm also joined today by my cat, Milo. Welcome to launch day. I'm very glad that you guys decided to click onto this video and listen to my lovely voice. I know it's a video, but we're doing audio only. However, I might show some pictures of stuff. For example, my cat, because he's here with me. I'm sorry if you can hear him purring, or if he at all disturbs the podcast by opening his mouth. Quick disclaimer about my podcast. I am an actor, I went to school for it, and I have been on film sets. However, I'm still relatively new to the industry. Most of what I will talk about will be purely from my own perspective. That means that I don't have a whole lot of experience with a lot of things in the industry. I've never actually really done stunts before. I have been in a couple of action scenes, though. Today's episode is just a quick introduction of what I will be talking about on my podcast and some of my own experiences. So what I'll be talking about is anything really that interests me from the film industry that I haven't seen people talk about, or that I feel like I want to share with people because I feel like it's important to learn. The college that I went to for acting is called New Image College. It's a relatively small college in Vancouver. I had a great time there, met lots of people, and got lots of friends out of it. They taught me a lot of things. They taught me about action scenes. They taught me about script, scene study. They taught me about the business side of it and how to act on camera as well as in theater. I'm being abandoned by my cat. He has left the booth. Goodbye, Milo. I have my own little sound booth that I've created here in my house. It is about 2.5 feet by 4 feet by another 2.5, 3 feet maybe? No, 2.5 feet at most. I'll show a picture of it right here. This is my booth. As you can see, it's got a bunch of squishmallows on the ground. And this is where I'm sitting. I sit in the huge one in the corner. I have some interesting experiences of being on set, specifically because I am non-binary. For the movie we did, Night Drive, first shoot days were all night shoots. There was 2 night shoots at the same location. The first night, they thought they were going to need me. I came in, spent the whole night there, didn't do any filming. I got my makeup done, and that was great, because everyone needs to get their makeup done for being on film. It's basically just color correction on your face. The second night, we had a different makeup artist, and this isn't their fault at all. But I sat down in the chair, and I was in the chair for a longer time than I was the first night. And that's because the makeup artist didn't know that I'm non-binary and my character is non-binary. So the person was specifically doing feminine makeup, and I went, They went, what? And I said, it just seems like I'm in the chair a lot longer than I was yesterday. And they were like, oh, and I was like, yeah, see, I'm non-binary, so they just did like a little bit of makeup, but it feels like a lot more makeup than what they did yesterday. And the person was like, oh, I'm sorry, do you want me to take some off? And I was like, yeah, if you could, that'd be great. And then I spent the rest of the night being super sad. It was my first experience as an actor where I got misgendered, and it was depressing. One of the first movie that we did, first short film we did for New Image College, was called Blood, Wine, and a Chicken. The thing about this movie is that it was written by ourselves in the class. It's my first experience writing something. I only wrote my scene, which is the first scene in the short film, but I encourage you to watch the whole thing, because there are really good scenes in there. One of the people in my class, his name's Carlos, he did a scene where he acted across from himself, and that was really cool. But it was my first ever experience writing something, and I feel like I did really well. But is supposed to be only 2-minute scenes, and I had to shave mine down a bunch because the original, I believe, was over 3 pages. So that didn't go too well. I had to cut out a lot of things that I genuinely enjoyed. There was even one moment on set. There's a line that my character's that somebody says to my character. So what, you're gonna give him a prostate exam? And the thing about that, the scene is about my character who's a scientist performing illegal experiments and an assassin sent to kill him. And the assassin had like a body in her freezer. And she was like, you gonna give him a prostate exam? And it was really funny because my director, he walks up to me at one point and he's like, you know, prostate exams are only for males, right? So it wouldn't be a prostate exam. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a guy. The assassin says you're gonna give him a prostate exam? Like, it's a guy. And he's like, oh, okay, then that's fine, carry on. But the funny thing about that was until that point in my life, because I think at this point I was 19, I didn't know that only men had prostates. So I learned that on accident without bruising my ego. But it was a very interesting learning moment for me. But yeah, so Blood, Wine, and a Chicken and Night Drive are the 2 short films that I have been in. Wrote a scene for Blood, Wine, and a Chicken. And then Night Drive was not written by me. It was written by somebody else. I can't remember his name right now. I'll put it on the screen. It was beautifully written. There was actually, fun fact, in the last scene in the movie, I'm supposed to be covered in blood on one side of my body because I supposedly get shot in the previous scene. But we filmed the scene of me getting shot after the last scene of the movie. And I said to my director, aren't I supposed to be covered in blood? And he's like, nah, we can just skip that. And I'm like, well, I played the last scene as if I was shot. And he was like, nah, you don't need to be shot. And I'm like, but I already did the last scene as if I was shot. So sometimes you have to be ready for the director to change something. So in a film, when you're an actor, you're supposed to be very aware of continuity. Since we filmed the scene where I got shot after the scene, the last scene of the movie, I played the last scene of the movie as if I had been shot. And I was guarding my side and trying to keep it hidden from the camera so you couldn't see that it wasn't soaked in blood, because that would ruin the shirt and also the pants I was wearing. And we were filming the other scene later that night. But it was really fun. Another thing about that Night Drive is that I had a car at one point. I got into an accident. Well, technically my mom was driving at the time, and it was winter, and we slipped on some ice, and we went spinning, and we got into a car accident. And the car got wrecked. But my car is in that film. It's not the car I'm driving. I'm driving my friend's car. The other car, the silver car that's being driven, is my car. That has since been wrecked. It got damaged a little bit on set that day, which, I'll be honest, it upset me a bit because a bunch of things were going wrong that night. I hadn't gotten a lot of sleep. And then to top that all off, we were filming the scene I was in that night last. And it's a scene where we're all sitting around a table and we're getting high as hell. Hi, Mila. I ended up doing about 2 hits on the nicotine vape that we had per take. About. Because I would take 1 at the beginning of the scene and then 1 midway through the scene. Sometimes I would end up taking 3, depending on the shot. And we shot that scene about 6 times. So, by the end of the scene, it was like 6 a.m., the sun was rising, I was tired as hell, I was angry, I had just done a bunch of nicotine, which I had never done before in my life and have not done since. and I felt nauseous, and I felt even more angry, and I was not having a good time. And ever since that day, I've sworn that I will not do nicotine again on set, which might end up being a problem in the future. But honestly, I don't like being angry at all. And that entire night just went worse and worse for me. And then I did a bunch of nicotine because I didn't even know it was a nicotine vape. I thought it was a blank filled with something that wouldn't actually get you high, because I didn't know much about drugs of any kind, because this was when, how old was I for this? I think I was 20 when we filmed this one. So I had never really done any sort of drugs, and I didn't know much about drugs. So it was a very interesting experience. And a lot of times, actually, in films, when you see people doing drugs, a lot of times it is fake. But also, I know in Britain, a lot of people do actually use real cigarettes. But there's also, I can't remember what they're called at this moment, but they're basically fake cigarettes. And that's what's used a lot in movies, but they're kind of expensive. So a lot of smaller budget movies, like the one we were doing in college, you can't afford those. So you just have to use, like, the real deal, which for us was nicotine. So, yeah, not a really fun time. I think that's all I have to say about my experiences in film today. I have been in theater plays before. I was in one called Savage in Limbo, where I played Savage. It was very fun. Hot tip for theater: make sure you memorize your lines. There was a day where we were doing our play. It was the first day, opening night. Somebody forgot their lines, and it was not a great time for them. We told them beforehand, you gotta memorize your lines, but up until that point, we hadn't actually done a theater play in front of a live audience, which sucked because it was our last theater play. Our first one we did was live streamed, and the second one we did, we filmed it. So we hadn't actually had an opportunity to do theater live, which sucks because I actually really enjoyed doing Savage in Limbo, and I would love to do more theater. But always make sure you memorize your lines, especially for theater. We're doing, like, it's a hour-long one-scene play. So you don't have an opportunity to go look at your lines in the back. You have to know them all. And it's just repetition, 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 repetition by yourself, repetition with the rest of the cast. Also, I would say my least favorite way of filming the play was the live stream. Because we did it once, and I actually don't want to talk about the live stream play. Only because we wrote it ourselves. It was so disjointed because we all had several ideas of where we wanted it to go, and it was all one long live stream of our instructor holding his phone up to live stream the entire thing. And the play didn't make any sense because we were all writing a different story within the play, and it just ended up super disjointed. So our movie worked a lot better because we all wrote the scenes for those too, but they're each individual scenes. They're not one overarching movie. They're individual scenes in the same coffee shop, and it worked really well. But if you're doing a project where you have several different writers, make sure you're all writing the same story and you're all talking about what you're going to be doing and where it's going to be going. Because if you don't, it's going to end up a huge mess. Huge. So that's everything I have for today. This has been really nice chatting with you. I can't wait to do more episodes of this podcast. The next episode coming out will be stereotypes in characters versus in acting. If you have any topics in film you'd like me to cover or any questions you'd like me to answer, feel free to ask on our Tumblr, which is at freescript with a Y. And the same thing as the channel. I personally have an Instagram as well, which is Nat G Simpson, but I will not be taking any questions there. My DMs actually are closed on my Instagram. Thanks for tuning in, and have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.